Hi, as you know, my name is Ariana and I'm the health coach for integrative family medicine. And I wanted to offer a presentation for this last group coaching session because of the fact that transitioning out of the Whole30 can just go so many different ways. The first Whole30 I did, my transition looked like standard pizza company pizza and a salad, and it didn't actually translate into how I ate after the Whole30. In other words, my experience of doing the Whole30, which felt so fruitful and so fascinating and so helpful, when I came to the end, I was so excited to just not have restrictions that I went kind of back to how I'd eaten before. And then after the second and third and fourth Whole30s, I kind of got a little bit better at moderating that. But I think that there are some key things you can do to help yourself have the kind of transition you want to have. And it starts with thinking about this concept of food freedom and of what that means to you, and then kind of really exploring what you want your relationship to food to be like, what works for you and what doesn't, and just giving it thought, coming up with several different reasons, like maybe 3 or 4 different reasons why it's important to you to eat in a way that both involves enjoying food and also supports your health. So here's a quote from Melissa Urban: "Food freedom is feeling in control of the food that you eat instead of food controlling you." It feels so true, doesn't it? That this concept of freedom, a relationship of freedom to food, is really where you're in the driver's seat, and it's not the potato chips or the cookies or the sense of social obligation to accept the freshly baked sourdough bread and eat it because otherwise you would be rude and wasting food. It's just like all of these little knots that we get caught up in, untangling them and getting to the point where we can respond to those situations the way we want to. So the reason I kind of start with this is because I really want to contextualize food in terms of our greater health. So this is the wheel of health that I use with my clients that comes from where I was trained at Duke Integrative Medicine. And it's this concept of health being an integrative dynamic thing. There's the mind-body connection, spirituality, movement, rest, exercise, sleep, physical environment, relationships, personal and professional development, how you're kind of continuing to evolve and be engaged with your sense of purpose in life, whether that's farming or retiring and being with family or having a career, whatever that looks like. Yeah. And then food, spirituality, mindful awareness, your relationship to yourself. But notice food is just one part of this. I think sometimes when we think about health, we get really fixated on exercise and food. And we think there has to be one diet, and the Whole30, like, okay, that's whole foods, there's no sugar, this is how I should eat all the time. And that's not really the case, yeah? So food is one part of the whole big picture. When we talk about your best health, we want every part of this wheel to reflect positive growth, in the direction you want to be. So let me keep moving my face around. So to talk more about food freedom, and just keep in mind that food is just one part of this bigger picture of your health. These are all quotes from the Whole30 website from Melissa Urban. Food freedom is where you want to be most of the time. The Whole30 is not, the point is not to eat that way forever. It's to learn about how you do want to eat and then eat on your own terms. Going back to that quote that we kind of skipped over a little bit, that food freedom is being in control of what you eat and not feeling controlled by your cravings for food. Yeah. So food freedom takes the morality out of food. We're really trying to piece apart, I'm going to eat this because I feel like I really want it. And I'm not going to feel a sense of shame or guilt about eating this cookie. I'm also not going to eat 10 cookies. I'm not going to deny myself, nor am I going to binge and eat the entire batch. And so kind of moderating and then having fun with it, exploring, enjoying, eating foods that make you feel good and that you enjoy. And this isn't about perfection. This is dynamic and it's unique. It's unique to you. And this is something that I think also gets missed sometimes when we talk about food and health and well-being. Dr. Lewis, one of our founding doctors, has this fantastic perspective on food and health. And that is that what we need in different seasons throughout the year changes, and what we need in different seasons of our life changes. So the food that best supports my health right now is not exactly the same as it was when I was 20. And the food that's really feeling good to me in this, like today, on this rainy spring day, is different than the food I was craving in January when it was snowy. Yeah. And so I think, again, we can in our culture get really fixated on, okay, I figured out what works and what doesn't, and now I have to stick to it 100%. And that may be true for you, that maybe that's your truth. Or it may be, can it be dynamic in some way? How can you have enjoyment? How can you have food that's healthy? And how, more than anything, can your self-awareness of what feels good to your body be your guiding, your guide, So how to go about that? What do you actually do to help yourself actualize eating in a way that feels good and that's dynamic? First, I think it's really important to pause and self-evaluate. If I had, after that first Whole30, which was actually 2 Whole30s, but after the first Whole60 that I did, if I had paused and I had said, okay, why did I do this? To be really healthy, to change my family culture around food so that I could help my son to grow up with a different relationship to sugar and to not have complicated messages of shame and guilt and love all mixed into the food we share as a family, to optimize my health and maybe improve my allergies, to have better digestion, to be more focused, to feel more in control. Like the list goes on, right? About the reasons that I actually did that first Whole30, Whole60. But to pause and just write that down helps to anchor yourself to why you chose to do the Whole30 in the first place. And then what did you love? What was hard? And then on the reintroduction, what did you learn? So what did you actually concretely learn about what works for your body and what doesn't? And then this is a big one, and I kind of, it's included here, but I feel like this question by itself is so important. Ideally, how do you want to eat moving forward? What are some general guidelines? And I don't mean that like restrictive little box of, okay, now I only eat this way for the rest of my life. But for the near future, what are some key components of how I want to approach food? It's important to me to be able to eat with my family. So eating foods that work for my close family that I'm with on a regular basis. It's important to me to not get caught up in a sugar addiction so that I end up making cookies every week, even if they are paleo cookies, sweetened with maple syrup, which is still sugar. So, kind of like writing down what you don't want to do and what you do want. Because again, if you're not clear about this, it's just easy to reflexively reach for something and then afterwards be like, I didn't really want that. Why did I eat that? And then start thinking about what will my health look like, in 1 month, in 1 year, in 10 years, if I eat, more or less this way or that. If I eat with my guiding light being before I reach for this, I pause and I check in and say, does this feel good or no? Does that make sense? I hope. All right. And then, this is the end of this short presentation. And I just want to say thank you and congratulations. Each of you has worked really hard. We've had about 29 people in this reboot, and you've each reached out in different ways. And it has been an honor to work with every single one of you. And I invite you to pause and celebrate today. Give yourself a moment to really honor the hard work of food prepping, of figuring out the guidelines of what to eat and what not to eat, of reintroducing, of hitting speed bumps or obstacles and getting around them. Give yourself a pat on the back, or like a lot of pats on the back. Yeah. What greater investment in your health could you make than taking a step back and really trying to figure out what foods feel best to you? And then we plan to do more reboots in the future on a semi-regular basis, and they won't all be centered around the Whole30. But any feedback, any advice, any experiences you want to share about what was useful in this for you and what was not, please email me. My new work email address that I'm transitioning to this week is ariana@integrativeasheville.org. So please email me. And thank you again. It's been an honor to work with you.